my colleague, Dr. Resmi Avula, who is going to co-present this talk. Thank you all for sticking to the end. It's almost 7, but I think we should be able to get through this in about 10 minutes. We're just going to give 3 examples of recent work that we've done related to nutrition-focused social protection programs, and Resmi will start.
Thank you. We just wanted to bring together the social safety net program work that we do at IFPRI, and I'm presenting on behalf of the colleagues who work on those programs actually. And this is more specific to those social safety net programs that are nutrition and food based. And as we were thinking about where does this work fit in the larger scheme of food systems, what we find is the social safety net programs are very much part of the food environment, especially in India, where there are these mainly 3 large-scale programs, which are the Integrated Child Development Services, Public Distribution System, and the Midday Meal Program. These 3 programs are very much influenced by the larger food system drivers, the food supply chains. So we wanted to understand how these programs influence the diets and the nutrition outcomes. Just to give a quick overview of these 3 programs to some of the colleagues who are not from India, the Integrated Child Development Services Program is is the flagship program of India, and it provides quite a few services, but focusing only on the food supplementation. It provides food supplements to the pregnant and lactating women and children from 6 months to 6 years. And the public distribution program, the beneficiaries are the households. It provides subsidized food grains in addition to certain other commodities. And the midday meal scheme program actually caters to children ages from 6 years to 12 years. All these programs, given that they provide food or subsidize food, have the potential to influence the diets of the beneficiaries, and they can act as food substitution. They can provide increase in calories, and depending on the commodities that become part of these programs, they can even increase diet diversity. As Dr. Longwa alluded to, the PDS getting the high glycemic index rise in the morning, that tells us that what happens in the larger food system very much impacts this microcosm of the food safety net programs. So I'd like to start with the example on the Integrated Child Development Services, where our colleagues examined how is the coverage equity that has changed over time between 2006 and 2016 using the National Family Health Survey data. And what we find is there has been, the coverage has improved 3 to 5 times between 2005 and 2016. I'm here showing only the data for food supplementation during pregnancy. So only 18% of women in 2006 reported that they received food supplements when they were pregnant. Now in 2016, 52% of women reported that they received food supplements when they were pregnant. Similar trends were observed for food supplementation during lactation as well as for children. The map, the left side map is for the 2006. The red areas indicate coverage of less than 25%, and the blue areas indicate coverage greater than 75%. So between these 10 years, there have been massive changes in improvements in coverage among majority of the states. And these changes have happened during this 10-year framework, where there has been big policy changes, where the coverage of ICDS has been universalized. So we wanted to understand during this period of expansion, how did different segments of population, how was the coverage experienced in the different segments of population? And what we find here, the green bars are the 2006 coverage rates, and orange bars are the 2016 coverage rates. If we look, and this is pertaining to the food supplementation during pregnancy. So if you look at 2006 proportion, overall the coverage was low across the wealth quintiles. The leftmost is the lowest wealth quintile and the rightmost is the highest wealth quintile. So across wealth quintiles, the coverage was low, but coverage was higher among the lowest wealth quintile, and it tapered down as we moved from lowest to the highest wealth quintile. But if we look at the distribution in 2016, we see that there has been an increase overall in coverage, but also we don't see the tapering off that what we saw in 2006. But the thing we see is still the coverage is not high. We expect the coverage to be at 100%, but it's just wavering around less than 60%. And in the lowest quintile, it's still less than 50%. So the inequity gaps are quite high. We see very similar trends in food supplementation during lactation, as well as in for children. So what does this tell us? So the coverage improved for foods improved, but there's still 50% gap overall for the current coverage and the universal coverage. So looking ahead, we have to focus on increasing the coverage, but at the same time now we have to turn our focus on the quality of the food supplement as well. And I think some of work is ongoing at NIN where the palatability and food composition of the supplements is being looked into. I would like to turn it over to Sam.
Okay, the second example that we'd like to present is on impact of subsidized fortified wheat on anemia in pregnant women. Anemia, is a really hard problem to address, and it hasn't changed a whole lot. So one of the strategies is to provide fortified wheat. In 2008, there were two different programs that started. One was in the state of Punjab, where they actually consume lots of wheat, and another was in the state of Tamil Nadu in the south, where they consume lots of rice, but not lots of wheat. And so that's what this figure shows here. In Punjab, this is per capita wheat and rice consumption per month, and they're eating about 8 kgs per person per month in Punjab, but in Tamil Nadu they're only eating 0.6 kgs per month. So in both of these states, wheat flour was fortified and distributed through the fair price shops as part of the PDS at a subsidized rate, and the intervention continued for about 4 years. So our goal here was to determine whether or not this had an impact on reducing anemia in pregnant women. Now, if we just look at the percentage of individuals in each state who are consuming the PDS wheat, you can see that in Punjab, before the intervention in 2004, there were nobody was consuming PDS wheat. It didn't exist. After the PDS wheat intervention, about 15% of households were consuming PDS wheat. In Tamil Nadu, they were not consuming much wheat, but over half of the households who did consume PDS wheat. And then in the dark green bar, we have the share of PDS wheat out of the total that was consumed. So in Punjab, only 10% of the wheat which they consumed, which is a lot because they're consuming so much, was PDS wheat. In Tamil Nadu, they're not consuming much wheat, but half of it is coming from the PDS wheat. So what we found basically using a difference in difference strategy in the DLHS data was that there was no impact in Punjab, and we found a very small impact in Tamil Nadu. The way that we explained this was that in Punjab, there wasn't much of a demand for the PDS wheat. So even though it was a wheat-consuming population, only 15% of households were reporting that they consumed the PDS wheat. We also think that the targeting wasn't appropriate, so they didn't target it to the poorest segments of the population. They targeted it only to APL, above poverty line, part holders. In Tamil Nadu, wheat may have not been the best food vehicle to deliver nutrients since it's consumed in such small amounts. However, there was a functional delivery system. and so that may be why we saw an impact. So in Punjab, there's high potential for this intervention to address anemia, but it has to be in demand, and PDS coverage needs to increase. In Tamil Nadu, maybe we should be thinking about different food vehicles. The last example that we have is on the midday meal program. And so this one started off with thinking about how can we reduce stunting actually. And when we think about stunting, we typically think about the 1,000-day window, not necessarily a school intervention in 6 to 10-year-olds, but the two strongest determinants of stunting are actually women's height and women's education. And so the midday meal program popped up, and we said, okay, if midday meals are bringing kids to school and keeping them in school, that can improve their education, and we're obviously giving them calories, so that could improve their height. So we wanted to test the impact of the midday meal scheme on stunting in the next generation. So this is district level maps from NSS data showing pretty rapid expansion from 1999 to 2011 in midday meal program coverage. This is the percentage of girls ages 6 to 10 who receive the meal in school. And in 1995, the government started the program. By 1999, only 6% were getting midday meals, but almost all the districts on the right-hand map there, you can see by 2011 were receiving the midday meals. This correlation here is what really got us interested in looking at the next generation effects. So on the x-axis here, we have midday meal coverage in 2004. So, and then on the y-axis, this is stunting prevalence in 2015. So each of these dots is a state weighted by the population size. A bigger circle means a larger state. And the states that had higher coverage 12 years ago, today they have lower prevalence of stunting. So that told us that maybe if the mothers are receiving the midday meal in school, today they're having kids who are less stunted. We tested this using some rigorous econometric models, and we found in the beneficiaries, so the actual beneficiaries who received the meals, we found large effects on educational attainment, we found a small effect on height, and we did find long-term effects on stunting in their offspring. And the largest effects were in the poor. Okay, so the policy findings from this paper were that stunting is very slow. It's only been about a percentage point per year reduction in the last 10 years from 48% to 38%. So we need to think about multiple interventions, not necessarily just 1,000 days, but interventions at all life stages. This program is very large. It's the largest school feeding program in the world. So it has a high potential for reducing stunting. And if you expand it to not just stop at 12 years, but to continue through adolescence, when girls are closer to becoming pregnant, we think there may be larger effects. And in the future, there's more focus needed on the quality of the meals, not just providing calories, but also thinking about dietary diversity. This is the last slide. So we wanted to bring this discourse on social protection into the food system. And we think that these programs are a very integral part of the food system. We've just shared 3 examples, but hopefully we think more about this in the future. So just like to thank the support from the Gates Foundation through Potion, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Rasmi, and thank you, Scott. Any question on that? Yes, please.
Hello. Okay. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. There was a slide where there was food supplementation during pregnancy, lactation, received increase 3 times, right? So what about the data on actual consumption of the food supplementation? Have you also looked at that? And the second question is, we've talked, so there was a diagram about midday meals comparison to stunting. So have you also looked at the similar exercise regarding the supplementation program and stunting?
So the data we presented are based on the National Family Health Survey, and consumption data is not available in that survey. So, but we have other we have other studies where we do primary data collection, and there we have consumption data which we are looking at now.
I think your second question was, do take-home rations provided through ICDS reduce stunting? And I don't think we've looked at that. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.